Hello everybody and welcome back. Good to talk to all of you again today, and today we got some pretty big news in World of Warships, and that is the first announcement for Submarines. And so I'm going to read this little post first, which says, back in 2018, many of you participated in the operation called Terror of the Deep. This event allowed everyone to try a new class in our game, Submarines. By the end of the event, it became clear that our players are highly interested in submarines and we should be engaged in full development. And now we are happy to announce that the first stages of closed testing will begin shortly, where the new gameplay of submarines will be tested. The American and German submarines will be the pioneers of the new class. After the super test, submarines will be available for players to try on a special server before being added to the main game client. And then of course, once introduced, the new class will initially be available in a special separate battle type only, and then this final configuration stage will last for several months, and then they'll do some more changes. And then, of course, the new classes will then be put into the actual live servers. So that's some pretty substantial news. Now, personally, I'm still under NDA on some things, so I'm not going to talk about anything gameplay related or anything else in that regard. So let's address first the announcement. Okay, so the first thing is you've noticed that they're going to do essentially a staged kind of release, right? It's like super test server, then closed server, then special game mode on live server, and then finally actual live gameplay. And this has to do a lot with the lessons learned from the CV rework. Now, those of you who remember, CVs got dropped in on all of us on the live servers and went, ta-da, here it is! And of course, you know, we had kind of crap happen for the next however many months. So they definitely learned their lesson from that. And so that's why this is going to be sort of staged one little bit at a time. And this, of course, allowed them to adjust things and, you know, like, I guess, react to feedback or whatnot. And hopefully by the time it finally makes it into like random battles, it will have something that is much more polished and much more in line or sort of fits nicely with the rest of the game. And so that's a big positive, that they have learned some lessons from the CV debacle and are applying it to submarines. I personally have concerns, and again, I'm trying not to violate any NDA related things, and I did bring these up, so I think that's okay to say, right? I did bring these up during the summit, and obviously my concerns will always be related to like, how does this fit within the overall game, right? Like, now we're gonna have a fifth class essentially in the game, and right now with only 4 classes, it's already kind of iffy a lot of times with balance. So a 5th class, I do have concerns. Another thing, of course, is, you know, historically speaking, the ships that were meant to counter submarines were the destroyers. And, you know, out of all the classes in the game, destroyers are probably among the most overwhelmed already in terms of the tasks that they have to do. So would it be like a good idea to add another workload on top of destroyers? And if destroyers aren't going to be the only classes that counter it, what else is supposed to counter it? I mean, you know, maybe CVs will have a new role? Question mark. I'm not 100% sure here, because the general assumption would be that the 2 larger ship classes, cruisers and battleships, would not deal with this particular class of ships because they never did historically. I don't know. And I mean, do we need it? I guess that's another question. This is always one of the questions that I find particularly challenging for myself, just because I had a really sort of negative experience with these things in an older game so for those of you who don't know this, like, there was a game before that I played a long time ago called Navy Field. Navy Field was a nice sort of capital ship oriented battle gameplay, whatever, for most of the game. And of course, it's a very different game than World of Warships, so please don't assume that I'm making a direct comparison here. They're not. And one of the things that happened was that at a certain point in time, the existing audience for Navy Field was only going to be so many people. So they tried to capture more people by bringing in submarines. And pretty much they brought in submarines, and the gameplay turned out to be such an issue for the larger game that there was a huge amount of people that just said, screw this, we're leaving. And I don't think the people gained outweigh the people that left. And that was really sort of the beginning of the end kind of thing for that game. And, you know, I mean, one of the big issues, of course, was the fact that at least in that game, was that the submarines were basically these unspotted, undetected, very hard to counter things unless it's by like, one or two ship classes. And that remains, I guess, part of my worries too with this ship class in World of Warships, assuming that they're anything like what they're supposed to be historically, stealthy, not really being seen by many ship classes except for like maybe destroyers or whatever, then you create a situation again which is going to be kind of similar to the early implementation of carriers and surface ships, right? Where the carrier was able to attack surface ships with very little counterplay by that said surface ship. And see where my concerns begin, right? That wasn't a fun experience for a lot of people. And like, what are submarines gonna look like, I mean, there's a part of me that is like, okay, this is a better development cycle. Maybe they'll not make the same mistakes and we'll get something that will be really good. But at the same time, I've seen a game try to implement this class and have it blow up sort of in their faces. And I don't want World of Warships to have that same sort of thing. So now I turn the whole thing over to you guys. What are your thoughts, comments, whatever? Leave those in the comment section below. How do you envision this gameplay? Like, what do you think the gameplay for this class will be? And how is that going to sort of interact with the rest of the game? I mean, if you've got thoughts, leave them down there, because who knows, if the guys at Wargaming read the comment section and pick out something that one of you wrote and think, hey, that's a pretty good idea, we'll talk about it. Who knows, right? I mean, they like things written and, in text form so they can talk over it during lunch or whatever. So, leave your thoughts and comments and opinions and designs or whatever in the comment section below. Aside from all that, folks, have yourselves a really good day, and I'll talk to all of you again soon. Oh, one more thing. I do apologize if you do hear a bit of a hum sound in the background. Yeah, I mean, there's just been noise today, unfortunately. So I do apologize for that and any other background noises you hear. It's not much I could do about it today, so I apologize about that. Anyways, folks, take care. Look forward to seeing your comments, and I'll talk to all of you again soon.